So I do want to talk a little bit about sovereignty in the political, um, having to do with Giorgio Agamben and Jacques Derrida. Now, Giorgio Agamben wrote a book called Homo Sacer, and it had to do with the paradox of sovereignty, which I'll explain more in a second. I did full videos back when I read that, like a year or two ago, and having read Derrida's Politics of Friendship like a couple months ago, I kind of finished her up a good bit. So I kind of want to talk about the paradox of self-sovereignty and what Derrida calls the political, and how there isn't really such a thing as the political, as many other political theorists before him might say, or might say that there is something called the political itself, I guess. But Agamben had this idea of the paradox of sovereignty, where sovereignty is this whole thing where the people get to choose either which law is going to affect, or which representative or official is elected to choose which laws go into effect, and in that way, the people do have power. They do have a say in things, and yet at the same time they don't. That's kind of what Agamben is getting at, and they don't in that the elected officials are going to make a decision regardless of what you say. And I guess I've explained it better, and Agamben explains it better, and I guess that's my verses here are just trying to talk about this a little bit and sort of get the bare concept of what he was saying, not really talk about Agamben per se. But the whole thing behind that is that it's a paradox in that you have sovereignty and yet you still don't. And there is the idea of the political and yet there isn't. And the political for Agamben is the idea of violence or justice, and violence in that we want to protect things from happening to the general public. We want to prevent things from happening to people. We want to protect people's rights and their being in some way, and we want the political. We want people to, I guess, have a say in how that's happening. I guess politics in general occur because of a desire of the people to have a say in things, and that's where the political itself comes from. And Derrida highlights this concept of violence, which kind of is what the political is, and that there is violence that could happen to the people, and that's where we want to sort of defend people, and that's where the idea of the political for Agamben comes from. And they have sovereignty, and they have a say, in that they are given, a say, and yet at the same time they aren't, because when you have a government, you're basically marginalizing the people backward. You are having this entity with which you're having this paradox as to how things are run. If you're trying to have sovereignty, and you also have, a government or a dictatorship or whatever, you're going to have a difficulty giving the people full sovereignty. There's this kind of paradox where things sort of go in, marginalize in and out, and you don't really have a full idea of what the political is, or what sovereignty even is, because there isn't a real such sort of thing. Moving on to Derrida, and the political for him was a very similar concept, in that the political is something that is and yet isn't. The political being as to how should things be run, and how the people how the people and their rights should be protected, or and how that is to happen. There is a political in that there is a people of and that there's people who are to be protected, and there are people who are going to do that, and yet there really isn't at the same time. There is the idea of in his Politics of Friendship, oh my friends, there is no friend, and the whole idea of the friend enemy, and the friend is the enemy and the enemy is the friend, and he kind of shows how those two concepts are intertwined, and there's a trace in between them, and how the political, which is based on the enemy, the political for Derrida is based on the enemy, in that the government wants to protect the people, all of whom which are friends, against the enemy. And he explains very well. He kind of, I guess, elucidates very well that the friend and the enemy are two intertwined and intertraced concepts, and basically that's where the political falls apart, and you don't really have a political anymore. So, given Agamben and Derrida, and also Foucault, I will discuss Foucault and his politics, his biopolitics, at some point in the future. Given these people, is there any political philosophy left? Is there anything to think or talk about in this whole thing? And yes, there is a way of thinking about it, and there's a way of, I guess, going about what to do about things. But you have to understand a few things, that everything is interconnected in some way or another, oftentimes in a contradictory way. And also that there is no entity of the political that we can uphold things on. There's no, I guess, thing that is there is no thing that is the political. You can have, I guess, ideas of what to do to keep a just society going, and yet you really can't, because Derrida also basically he also deconstructs the idea of justice. So I don't know. I could keep rambling about this for a while. So let me know what your thoughts are as to what is left of political philosophy or political theory. Let me know in the comments below, and I appreciate it. Thank you.